I've lived in the UK for 5 years. I was born in Italy, grew up in Germany, studied in the Netherlands, Mexico and Cambridge, and now I live and work in London. What determines your experience when living in a country? The friendships you make, that exciting discomfort of being immersed in a new culture. But I argue it's also the everyday experience of being a citizen of that country. Even before you arrive, you need to apply for a visa, getting funding for study, maybe even opening up a business, which are all provided by the civil service. And I think that's something that we've just realized in the past 2 years. Society's accelerating at breakneck speed. New technologies are changing how we want to live. So what should a civil service of the 21st century be for? In this video, I'm going to explore this question. I'm going to argue that we should create a so-called semantic civil service, inspired by the Semantic Web and a Web 3.0 model. A semantic civil service is decentralized, granting users control of personal data and creating more bespoke and better policies. The civil service has been in a constant state of evolution, but its values remain the same.
Here's a document from 1854 called On the Organization of the Permanent Civil Service, in which it basically states that the civil service is responsible to contribute to the discharge of the functions of government. Now, if we look at the latest mission statement of the public service, there is an emphasis again on providing high quality advice to government, but there is one thing that is particularly interesting, and that is a shift from servicing citizens to users.
To understand why, we need to go back to the early 2000s. The dot-com bubble had burst, and a few winners were emerging.
Wow, that is impressive.
This period saw the emergence of Web 2.0, the internet as we know it today, dominated by platform economies. And at that point, it felt like everything coming out of Silicon Valley was amazing.
This new love will last, 'cause we...
So why not redesign a civil service like it? In 2010, entrepreneur Tim O'Reilly brought forward the idea of government as a platform.
The idea is actually pretty simple. The civil service would obtain something like a central operating system in the form of GDS. Through APIs, third parties would be able to get access to data from the civil service and develop additional digital products and services to be used by users. Now, have you noticed that accessing services has felt more and more like logging into some kind of account of a tech platform? Think about it, track and trace, how did it work? Well, through an online app. EU settlement scheme application, which I had to do. How did that work? Well, again, online platform. And this government as a platform model really did bring some benefits. It provided more innovative services, it stimulates the digital economy by involving startups, and it makes the civil service much more user-friendly. So it looks like we have the perfect model, right?
Alarm bells were raised about the access to data, specifically the ability to connect a user's personal identity with their browsing activity.
Cambridge Analytica, which I know sounds like a Harry Potter.
Web 2.0 has been criticized for failing to safeguard privacy and giving too much power to platform economies. So if we take inspiration for the design of the civil service from Web 2.0, unsurprisingly, this will reproduce the same shortcomings. Firstly, a centralized platform creates a single point of failure, which can undermine trust. Data about citizens is centrally collected, analyzed, and stored. Web 2.0 centralizes power and increases the risk of exploitative use of data and cyber threats. Secondly, data is not used in the most effective way possible. Data gathered is static, laying around and siloed between government departments. It's a bit like having loads of money lying around in the bank, but you're not investing it. And the weakness of this model became ever more evident during our times of crisis with Brexit and COVID. So there's been a lot of calls to reform the civil service and help it overcome the issues endemic to Web 2.0. As Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web himself says, the internet is broken. So how do we fix it? This is a scan of a brain. See how neurons and synapses work together, decentralized but synchronized, always processing information from across the brain and using it to give meaning and structure to the world around us. And this is how some people, like Tim Berners-Lee, are saying we should reorganize the internet, decentralized, automated, and open. The idea refers to something called the Semantic Web, which is part of Web 3.0, a learning internet that breaks the monopolization of platforms. But how does the Semantic Web work in practice? And how can it serve as a model for civil service reform? The semantic web has 3 key characteristics, and applying these can help us create what I call a semantic civil service. Web 3 rejects the idea of centralizing custody of data, and instead it proposes to give users more control. Today you log into a platform and you receive services in exchange for your data that is collected.
In a semantic civil service, all of your data would be held here, your own personal digital wallet, which includes your personal information such as health records, pay slips, and it is most importantly controlled by you. So users would set their own privacy profile on their wallet, determining the types of data that they're willing to grant access to and for what purpose, and then automatically apply it. This way, users obtain more control over data about them and can add personal preferences as to the types of services that they would like to receive.
The idea behind the semantic web is to break down data silos erected by Web 2.0, creating a web of linked data from across the whole web to be analyzed as if it were from one database.
With data, the sea change may be even greater, because not only are we allowing people to be able to access stuff more effectively from across the globe, but because this is data which can be manipulated, we can put machine power into filtering it down and then allowing them to join that to other summary data to maximize the human's ability to see the correlations or the trends.
So data held by HMRC or DCMS will be published internally, allowing for a cross-departmental analysis. In the UK, breaking these silos is even recognized already as a policy priority. And this data could then be linked with data from the web, as well as personal data made available by users, and create much more comprehensive policies based on combined insights from the civil service, the web, and user needs. But there is a third step that would need to be achieved to make the civil service truly semantic. The semantic web is characterized by operating through AI systems that analyze the web of data, giving it meaning and automating decisions on the back of that.
Automation increases efficiency. Machines can be kept running longer at full capacity. Workers are upgraded. The emphasis shifts from manual to mental skills.
The way it automates decisions is through something called smart contracts. A smart contract is a contract that is self-executing and has its terms enshrined in lines of code.
So in practice, users would grant access to data about them from their wallet. This data is then linked with data from the civil service, and the smart contract would execute its functions once the data indicates that the terms have been met. So let's take an example from HMRC, which is just here in the background, where companies could pay their taxes in real time, and once they receive income or revenue, they could qualify it for rebates automatically. Beyond smoother delivery, think about the questions we could start asking, the scientific breakthroughs we could achieve. The Department for Health and Social Care could better map and prevent the spread of the next pandemic. Or the Treasury could obtain a deeper understanding of the mechanics of the economy and design policies to make it more inclusive. But it would also enable us to do larger moonshots projects, such as in cancer research or space exploration, in cooperation with the Advanced Research and Innovation Agency. A semantic civil service will help us find answers that are currently outside the scope of our cognitive abilities.
Now the question is, of course, how do you build a semantic civil service? There are still some obstacles. For example, our AI systems aren't nearly as intelligent to be called semantic. To get closer to a semantic civil service, we would need to invest in technology and infrastructure, develop a culture in which users have more responsibility, and finally, establish supporting policies for mitigating risks such as data privacy and bias in decision-making.
So what should a civil service of the 21st century be for? When I first moved to the UK, I wished for a civil service that is effective and addresses people's needs. As simple as that. And documents from across the centuries show that its purpose hasn't changed much either. But the historical task will be to fulfill this function as our world changes, preparing us to face future challenges that no one else has faced before. A semantic civil service could bring us a step closer in achieving this.